Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name is Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates. And yeah, another FPL video. The season seems to be coming up so quickly. As Glenn put in the comments, 8 days to go. And the excitement is slowly building, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm so buzzing for it. Going to pre-season game on Saturday, getting some of that intel in person to probably change my draft another 500 times. But yeah, buzzing for it. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't changed my draft as much as I thought I would. I've only touched it like once in the last week for making changes, so I'm pretty happy with that. And wow, it's looking like the template could be smashed open if a certain GOAT comes to the Premier League.
I know it's mental. Obviously, Messi. If you don't know, where are you? Why are you watching us? If you don't know this, but yeah, Messi obviously not staying with Barcelona, so only a few teams can probably sign him. A lot of them are in the Premier League, so we'll talk about that maybe towards the end of the video. But shall we get cracking into our drafts?
Yeah, who wants to go first in their draft?
You go, as you're more nailed on for your draft.
Okay, cool. So this is what I've got at the moment. So in goal, I've gone for a set and forget option. I've gone for Meslier. As a young keeper coming into the Premier League on his first season, with one of the best defensive records in the second half of the season, I think it's a really good shout. I remember Josh saying he's averaging like 4 saves a game. He's a proper decent keeper. And even when they don't keep a clean sheet, I think Meslier is still going to pick up at least 3 points, which I'm going to be happy with. And, you know, there's always a risk for me when rotating keepers. I think setting one and forgetting one this season is going to be the way to go. So Meslier is a keeper of choice for me. As my backup, I've got Foster. I mean, it's the most likely 4 million keeper to play with. I don't know what's going on with Backman, but there was talk of him leaving. So we'll see what happens with that. The back line, I've gone template and differential at the same time. The template players being Trent. I mean, I think Liverpool are going to keep a few more clean sheets than last season with the introduction of, Van Dijk, Gomez and Konate. They're almost going to be like new signings, in my opinion. Luca Digne under Rafael Benitez in a more defensively sound Everton. I'm liking the look of. And then Wan-Bissaka. Now, this is a bit of an outside pick for me because Luke Shaw looked fantastic over the Euros, but we look over the course of an entire season, Wan-Bissaka picked up more fantasy points than Luke Shaw. And, you know, Luke Shaw had the higher expected involvements, but the involvements that actually happened, Wan-Bissaka had more than Luke Shaw, which is kind of strange to see because we kind of assumed off the face of it, off just the looking at the players, that Luke Shaw would be clear, but I don't think it's clear cut between those two fullbacks, which is why I've gone Wan-Bissaka. And then I've got John Stones in there as well. I feel like for me, going without a City player is completely bonkers. And I think John Stones is one of the safest picks in that City team. So that's why I've gone for him. 5.5 million. It's a little bit expensive for a centre half, but I'm confident that he will play the first game of the season. And that Norwich game, I'm kind of looking to target. So in the midfield, I've gone for the 2 big hitters and a few 6.5 million options. So I've gone Bruno Fernandes and Mo Salah. I think they're the ones you have to have in your team. No doubt about it. I think they have to be the first 2 names. They were the first 2 names on my team sheet. Bruno Fernandes, his numbers speak for himself. Even without penalties and the penalty points that he got, he's getting 200 plus points a season, which is ridiculous for any player. So he's got to be in there. A lot of people over the summer questioning his ability in open play, and I think those people are just trying to nitpick and find something wrong with him instead of just going with the flow and going with him. Mo Salah has to be in. Simple as he's been the most consistent player for the last 5 years in FPL. And then the 6.5 million options. Now, you could go any one of a load of ways with this. Buendia, for me, is essential now. With Jack Grealish gone, with Ollie Watkins potentially moving out to the left. Now, now Ings is in. I think Buendia is the safest option because, Ings injury concerns sometimes. Watkins, now you've got that concern with him out wide. So I think Buendia is one of the safest options now for Aston Villa. His numbers speak for themselves again. He had a good run in the Premier League last time out with Norwich. Fantastic season in the Championship last year. I think he'll do good. And then Bowen, I've talked about him before, and I'm still backing him. I think him or Ben Rama, both fantastic picks this season. Both looked in electric form in pre-season. And then up front, I've gone for Antonio, who I like as a pick. To be honest, I don't like all the striker options that are available. There's always something just a little bit wrong with them. In Antonio's case, it's that injury concern, but I'm happy with him there because he's an easily interchangeable player. Up front with Ivan Toney, who I think will score a few goals this season. He's already set his aspirations to 20 goals this season. And to be honest, I could see him doing that because he is that player who is in the right place at the right time and is just really, really clinical in his positioning. And then on the bench, I had Fofana, had to change this out to Veltman. Again, Josh said in the TikTok live stream with the 4.5 million defenders, there isn't too many options, and the options that you have a lot of drawbacks. And I think that's what you're going to get with a lot of 4.5. So to limit the amount of 4.5 defenders in your team, I think is a good thing. Then I've got Rafinha. I don't expect him to start too many of my games in the first couple of games, but then I think I'll bring him in to the starting 11 for sure, and I think he'll bring a lot of fantasy points. And he's the sort of player who, even if he doesn't get returns, I love watching anyway. So that's why I've got him in there. And then Obafemi, he's a 4.5 million striker who has potential to get minutes now Danny Ings has gone. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it's a very different compared to my team that we'll see in a minute. I like a lot of the picks. A lot of similar sort of picks as well, which is decent. Antonio, we've both got, as you will see. And again, I agree with that point with 7.5 million strikers. There's always something with all of them that makes you think, is it going to be worth it, or is it going to be this guy? Because there's a lot of options at that 7.5 million mark. I agree with your Man City point as well. I feel like you need to go with a Man City player. Who that is, though, is the massive question mark because they literally have about 3 teams worth of starting 11 caliber players. So, decent team. Should we go on to my one?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Right. So, I've gone a little bit different to Ben. Not in goal, though. We've got Meslier in goal. Again, set and forget. I spoke about him on the last live stream. Ben's covered him quite well. I'm expecting a lot of saves, and Leeds are as good defensively team as a team like Leicester last season. I'm seeing a lot of people opt for Schmeichel. They've got the same amount of clean sheets. A lot of people think that Leeds are a really bad defensive team because the start of the season where they had no centre-backs. But I think they're going to pick it up a bit more solid defensively, and I expect Meslier to get a lot of saves in these United and Liverpool games that are in the first 4 game weeks. So hoping for good things out of him. Trent is as nailed as it could be. I don't really want Robertson. I just don't think it's worth that 0.5 to go down to him. And I think he's just going to have a great season this year. Matty Target's in there. £5 million is a bargain. Aston Villa's first freeze and then dump for me. I won't carry him on through the rest of those games. Those first 3, though, are so tasty. And it'd be interesting to see how Aston Villa do now with all these new acquisitions. Is that going to affect them defensively? Are they going to not be able to create as much? It's going to be a good watch, those first 3 games. Got Soyuncu in there. It's a difficult one. I had Soufal, and then I was like, I'm on a West Ham triple up on game week 1. Not really fancying that. They don't have the greatest run of fixtures. It's not bad by all means, but didn't really want that. So Soyuncu's in there at the minute, but obviously they only have 1 centre-back at the minute, Leicester. So that could literally change to anyone that I fancy, really. Callum Chambers is in there, 4.5 million. A little bit differential to Ben White. I'm hoping he starts at right back. I'll obviously research that more towards the time. It could be Cedric, but basically Arsenal's right back, if it's not Bellerin, which I don't think it will be, is going to be 4.5 million. And I think that's really good value for the team that they possess. Midfield, as Ben says, Salah, Bruno, without a doubt. Salah's captain game week 1 and probably game week 2 for me. And then obviously Fernandes has got some decent fixtures in there. Some captainable games as well, like Wolves. Let's see how they get on. New manager. They've also got Newcastle as well in the first 4. So some decent fixtures for him. Heung-min Son's in there, £10 million. I can't not look at him when he's so proven in FPL, over 200 points last season. Yeah, that City game's not the most ideal, but we've seen him score against City before. And in the next three after that, they're some of the three best fixtures you could probably ask for. Good captaincy option in game week 3, where Salah and Bruno maybe not as good. And then Ben Rama, as Ben mentioned, £6 million, a little bit cheaper than Bowen. That goal against Brentford just says it all for me. He can just spark a bit of magic out of nowhere. And those kind of FPL assets are just so fun to own. Antonio in there, 7.5 million. I think at the minute, he's probably the best option at 7.5 million if he can stay fit, which is a big question mark. A good fixture as well, Newcastle away. And then I've got the guy who's going to be facing him in game week 1, Callum Wilson, replacing Ollie Watkins yesterday, because I don't fancy tossing and turning overnight for that Villa striking spot. I think Ings will start. I think Watkins will play out wide. I've seen loads of people think they're going to play 4-4-2. I just don't think that's going to be the case, not in the Premier League. So yeah, I'm going Wilson, Antonio, but that again could change. I could downgrade Wilson to Tony, for example, put the money in defence, maybe get a Chilwell or a Luke Shaw or someone of that ilk. On the bench, there is not a lot of funds around here. Danny Ward, just as a backup, really. Leeds backup keeper's 4.5 million, which is really frustrating. Veltman, 4.5 million, is a good rotation option if you have a Leeds defender as well in there. If you don't go Meslier, if you've got Eiling, they rotate quite nicely. Brighton have a good start to the season. I've got Keena in there. He scored a couple goals in pre-season. I have no clue if he starts. I'll probably go Brownhill, but he's just in my team because I've seen he scored. I'm not going to lie to you. And then Obafemi is there because obviously I feel like he would probably get more minutes than Keenan Davies with that new acquisition for Danny Ings for Villa. So that is the team. What are we saying, Browno?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. Oh, sorry. My camera's gone. Camera's gone. We're back. Yeah, I mean, looking at your team, I think you've gone bold in the midfield with the three big players, but I think that's going to accumulate a lot of points. Where I would have concern is the depth of your bench is the only kind of stumbling block for me. Whether there's an opportunity there to, if Leicester don't get an emergency centre back in, does Amity at 4 million. I think a lot of people would kind of turn to him as a viable FPL option, especially at that price, starting in a very good Leicester team. I think that could be something you could look at to maybe upgrade your bench options somewhat. But yeah, very strong team. I think Wilson is a bit heavily underlooked at striker. I know at Bournemouth he wasn't quite as consistent as he is now, but at Newcastle, he's been their main man when he's fit. And when he's fit, he has one of the best goal-to-game records out of anyone in his time playing there. So I think you've potentially got a bit of a gem there.
Yeah, also Joe Willock, apparently they've agreed a deal for him to go back to Newcastle on a permanent deal. So we saw at the end of last season, Newcastle tore it up really. Went up quite under the radar as well with all those games they won, getting points away from Liverpool and other top 6 teams. So I think Newcastle might slip under the radar, like you mentioned, especially with Wilson at that price point. If he's fit and starting, he's always in my team. He nearly got 50% of Newcastle's goal involvements last year. It's absolutely insane. So he's definitely one to go into my team.
Yeah, I like it. Kind of comparing it to my team, what you've gone for is an extra premium almost in that midfield area to downgrade your defenders. So what you're kind of hoping for then is goals maybe in the first few fixtures, and you know, hoping that it comes from the lads that are quite highly priced.
Yeah, I just think like with obviously a few of the boys at the minute, a lot of the bigger teams got a lot of players coming back from the Euros. Like I'd love to get a City defender in there, but who's going to play other than Ruben Diaz? It's really unsure. And Ruben Diaz, 6 million. That's quite a premium price, especially for a centre back. United boys, obviously Luke Shaw's back in training. Wan-Bissaka's now got a knock. And then even still, is Varane going to start in that first game week? Are they going to gel together? They've got no Henderson. De Gea's going to come in. There's a lot of question marks around these big teams' defences, Everton included, with Benitez. Are they going to do well? Because Everton's defence last year was one of the worst in the league. So there's so many question marks. And I think I'd rather bet on the attackers than the defenders. I think everyone does. If you've got an attacker on your bench, you always put him on there instead of the defender. So that's the thought process for me.
Yeah, it's an understandable thought process. And what we'll do then maybe is go to some of your questions, maybe talk about Lionel Messi as well. What price would you say he has to be at for him to be considered essential if he were to come to FPL?
I think it all depends who he joins, because I don't think it's just written in the stars that he'll join City. Like Chelsea have got a lot of money that they're throwing about at the minute. There's loads of teams that could probably go for him. I feel like it's just a difficult one, because if he's in that City team, does he play every week? Like, I'm unsure, to be honest. Like, Pep Roulette would not surprise me. If you're getting Pep Roulette like a £14 million midfielder, that is not cool business. So I reckon he'd have to be around 14 million, to be honest. I don't know about what you're thinking.
14 for him to be essential for you?
Nah, it'd have to be like 13 for me to consider him.
Yeah, I was thinking if you think about the other players in his position, you're looking at he'd probably be classed as a midfielder?
He has to be. If Salah's a midfielder, sure.
Yeah, I think you'd probably put him 0.5 more than Salah. I'd say 13 million would make him probably an essential player. It's crazy for FPL to have a 13 million pound player, and if that was Messi, I like you said, I don't know if I'd be tempted by him if he was at City, but if he was at anyone else, I'd be all on that, getting him in. But we'll wait and see where he goes. He could end up at a whole host of clubs across Europe, like PSG. And then, well, I guess not a whole host, just PSG and English clubs, to be honest.
Cherry pick of oil companies.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. But, I mean, he'd be highly owned. We'd look at his sort of ownership, and he'd probably be competing with Salah and Bruno for the highest owned player in the game, especially if he was like within a sort of reasonable margin, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just a really questionable. Obviously, we don't know anything, but he's got to go somewhere. Someone in the comments saying to Leeds, I just don't think they would be able to afford that. Like, if Barcelona can't afford it, I just don't think Leeds would be able to afford it. Second season in the Prem.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd take a pay cut wherever, because I think he's ready to take that pay cut at Barca. But I mean, we'll see what happens. It's a very up in the air sort of thing at the moment. So we'll see about that. We got one comment here asking about an FPL midfielder that we haven't quite talked about yet, Kai Havertz.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? 8.5 million. I think it's a bargain on paper for Kai Havertz. But obviously, all these rumours with like Lukaku, apparently they've agreed personal terms, but they've got to agree a deal. It put me off him, because where does he play if Lukaku comes in? We already know that Tuchel likes to rotate. Probably not as bad as Guardiola, but similarly. So yeah, I think for 8.5 million, you could get a lot better player and more nailed player, especially.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a lot of debate between Havertz and Mason Mount in that Chelsea midfield. I think if Chelsea don't sign a striker this summer, Havertz will be the better option. If they do sign a striker, the likes of Lukaku, Haaland, one of those sorts of players, I think Mount becomes the better option as the striker there kind of takes up the position where Havertz likes to finish. And I think Mount could become more of a creator than Havertz. I'm not too sure what you think about that, but does a Chelsea signing a striker make Havertz kind of not as prominent for point scoring for Chelsea?
Yeah, I feel like he'd get pushed out to the right. So I don't think he'd, obviously, we all expected him to have like a lot of goals this season. So I just think I'd hinder him in that regard. I think Werner becomes a lot better asset if they get another striker, because he's obviously played out on the left. He just gets loads of assists. I know it's not ideal for a forward to get loads of assists, but I think he's still a decent option. He's not too expensive either. 9 million. I think if it was a midfielder, everyone would be jumping on him.
Yeah. So missing out on Mahrez. I mean, he was a player that, whilst you were talking about your team, I brought up my team and started playing around and worked a draft where I had Amity, Mahrez in there together as an upgrade on one of my as one of my 6.5 mids. Sorry. is he someone that is potentially being overlooked because of like that Pep Roulette fear? Because he's played a lot in pre-season and he's had a starring role.
Yeah, he scored loads of goals and got a few assists, I think, in pre-season. He is playing well. You can't deny that. But like he gets us in every year. You see City playing so well. You'll bring in the players who are doing well, and then next week they're just not going to be playing. So it's one of those where if you can time it right, go for him. I think if there is a time, it's probably game week 1 to go for Mahrez. I can't see anyone else started on the right other than him. Especially, I think Foden was in a moon boot last time I saw him, so I don't know if he's fit. Sterling, Grealish, they've all been at the Euros quite deep into it. So I think Mahrez especially is probably a man to go for. 9 million as well, so $1 million cheaper than Son. I have thought about Mahrez in my draft and saved that $1 million, but for me, I think Son is worth that extra $1 million just because he's nailed. He could be playing up front if Kane's not there. There's a lot of positives for Son, I think, going into this season. That's why I've steered clear of that Mahrez roulette.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like Mahrez, but it's just that for my team, that with the 6.5 mids, it's very hard for me to kind of upgrade and downgrade as I want to without taking hits during the season. So that might be something that I have to look at in my draft to try and kind of balance it out a little bit more, where I have the 2 premium boys, one kind of mid premium in the 7.5 to 9.5 bracket, and then maybe a 6.5, and then someone cheaper at 4.5 I've got to look at. So the fact that you brought that up, I think it is important to have someone maybe around that price point, which is maybe where Josh has an advantage over my draft at the moment.
Yeah, well, there's loads of options, isn't there? Like just under 10 mil. You got Sancho 9.5. You got Mahrez 9. You got all the City boys around 8 million. Who else? Havertz, as we've mentioned. So someone out of that group has got to pop off at some stage. So that's why I've gone with that Son pick, because I think Son's first 4 I'd be happy to have anyway, and then if I can, I could always transfer him out for one of those boys that I've mentioned.
Yeah, we'll take a few more questions before we wrap up the draft stream. I mean, it's going to change a lot more, I think. Talking about it a bit more. I haven't really had my FPL hat on in the previous week or so. So I'm definitely thinking myself already changes. I don't know if you are, Josh, but I'm definitely thinking of changes.
Yeah, 100%. There's always room to make change. I must change my team at least about 3 times a day at this rate. Just that on my lunch break at work, it's just always changing, always tinkering. Someone's asking about Salah, 6 million, so a little bit cheaper. Obviously in that Ben Rama bracket. He's obviously going to be nailed because Watford's best player. What would you think of him? Obviously watching him in the Championship as well.
Ismail Sarr is a really, really good player. For me, he's one to be wary of, but the risk is pretty low of him because he's only 6 million. And with him, he will either pop off, score a couple of goals and get an assist, a really explosive player, or he'll kind of get lost in the game and you'll just end up being frustrated that you've like, I've got Sarr on my team when I could have had someone potentially like Buendia popping off, or Rafinha, players like that who, you know, have put up really, really good numbers. So I like him as an asset. I'm just not sure, especially with that Watford team. I'm not sure that it's the strongest one out of the promoted teams, but definitely one that I was considering, and he was in my first draft as well. So
Yes, good little player. Someone's asking when will we rate drafts? We're always rating drafts over on Instagram. There is serious amounts of DMs. I think people think that we don't actually come around to rating them, but there's just that many DMs that you're probably just somewhere in the middle of everyone. So we do get round to it. We'll definitely make sure we'll get round to it before the Friday deadline, I'm sure. So yeah, keep them coming and we'll try and get back to you as quick as we can.
Yeah, I'll get in on this weekend, lads, because I mean it's been busy times down FPL Graduates HQ. We've been pre-season training basically. One one comment we got. Where is Shaw and Digne? I have Digne.
Basically,
I don't have Shaw
as well. Basically,
yeah. Well, the difference between Wan-Bissaka and Shaw, I don't think it's too much. I think you can make a case for either of those defenders in that case. But you said Luca Digne, you weren't convinced by Everton's defending last season, and do you expect them to improve, or is Rafa Benitez not enough to improve that defense?
I expect them to improve for sure, but I just don't he can't turn a rubbish defense to a great defense overnight. Do you know what I mean? It's going to take a period of time. So for me, that's why I'm just not that keen. Digne will get returns. I'm almost sure about it. He got 9 assists last season. Depending on how he plays in that system, because Rafa isn't known for pushing on his fullbacks. They usually just stay quite compact. So there's a few drawbacks. I've just gone with my drafts quite you know what they're going to do. It's exactly what it says on the tin sort of draft, to be honest. And that's the way I'm going to play it off the bat. I'm not really taking too many risks off the bat, I don't think. So, and I think Shiv's asked why DCL hasn't been talked about. It's the same sort of reasoning, to be honest. Like, there's no... James Rodriguez probably leaving. Obviously, Sigurdsson's not there. There's just not a lot of creativity in that team anymore. Like, they've lost quite a bit of it. Richarlison's obviously coming back from the Olympics. They signed Damari Gray, Townsend. Like, it's just not the same sort of Everton team that we saw at the start of last season, in my opinion. And 8 million is quite a hefty fee when you can pay 0.5 more and get someone like Cavani, who we know will probably score a few goals. And Martial, I think, is 8 million, who's back in training, looking quite lively. So, yeah, 8 million is quite expensive. I don't know what you think about DCL.
Yeah, I think he's quite expensive for an unknown. He had a very good first half of the season and dropped off a lot in that second half of the campaign. So I'm not entirely convinced. I think if he does get the goals, though, it's coming from Digne anyway. So yeah, I think one or the other's just fine. And it depends how your team's balanced, I guess, in terms of finances and where you've got your money, whether that be in attack or defence. I think, to be honest, both players as well are so easily interchangeable that it's not too risky unless you pick up a couple of injuries in the first couple of weeks with your FPL team. So yeah, that's a good thought. Another striker in that bracket as well, Danny Ings. Again, with strikers like these, he's a proven Premier League goal scorer. He gets lots of goals, but it's the injury concern, and that's the drawback with Danny Ings, isn't it?
Yeah, we've mentioned it with Antonio and Wilson. There's obviously a little bit isn't there? There's always that little bit in your mind. They could pick up an injury, and if they pick up the same an injury in the same week, you're kind of screwed. So it's not ideal. Danny Ings, though, I think he's going to do well in that Villa team. It's just I'd rather wait and see. I'd rather hop on it after he starts scoring. Do you know what I mean? Because it's quite a big risk. There's a lot of new players in that attack for Villa. It's just similar to the Everton situation. Are they going to gel? It's just unknown. And I'm not willing really to take that risk, especially at £8 million when there's those players like Wilson, Antonio, proven in the Premier League, 7.5 million. Even Tony, I'd rather take a punt on because it's a whole 1.5 million cheaper. So, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on him.
Yeah, I like him as an FPL asset. And to be honest, last season I hopped on him at probably the worst possible time I could have. But we move, and I do like him as an asset. I think he'll be on penalties for Aston Villa for sure. Proven Premier League goal scorer, and I think that's a bit more crucial. He's done this year in, year out, and I think if he stays injury free, he's good. And I agree with you on the fact that once he starts scoring, he'll get a goal, and then he'll get a couple more next week and one more the week after. And he'll go 5 weeks on a good run of form. That's the sort of player Danny Ings is. So that'll be one I'd prefer to hop on the bandwagon for, rather than kind of take that risk a couple of weeks before he starts performing. But yeah, I think overall, Danny Ings, solid FPL asset.
Definitely. Awesome. So shall we wrap the stream up there? I think we've answered a lot of questions. If you've got any more questions, I'm sure we'll be live on TikTok throughout the weekend and whatnot. And we'll obviously have more YouTube content coming next week, hopefully. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers now. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We'll massively appreciate it. The Graduates Army, we're building ready for the start of the next season.
Yeah, we're nearly at 1,000 subscribers as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're what 20 off, something like that.
Well, Glenn said we're 9 off in this stream, so who knows?
No one knows at this point, but yeah, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. It helps out more than you can know. And yeah, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
Later. Have a good game week, everyone.